Hello and welcome to the Strategic Bookkeeper podcast. In this episode, I'm diving into brand. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is right now I'm batch recording. It is the 11th of February as I record this, and I'm actually just getting ready for our first summit, the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint Summit. So by the time you hear this, it could be a few months later. I will let you know that you may still be able to get access to our summit, like all the 25 amazing speakers that you should be able to get access to if you go to the bookkeepingpracticeblueprint.com. And by the time I air this episode, my new book will be well and truly published, which is the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint. So hopefully you've got my first book, The Strategic Bookkeeper, and my second book to use together. And you've got all of the episodes inside this podcast as a companion. So my goodness, do I give you a whole lot of very low cost and free, incredible education to help you to thrive in practice. And in fact, it's amazing to me to hear from bookkeepers, particularly women all over the world, even in like Tanzania, amazing about how they're using all the content to do better in business and in life. So my friend, this will be the last episode that I batch record in February today. I've got about 10 in the bank, which is great because my amazing executive assistant, Joselle, is taking 6 weeks off. I think she won't mind if I celebrate that she's getting married. So really exciting, but much easier for her to take care of all of this before she goes away. And lately, as I've done episodes for you, a lot on back end. Okay, so as I was batch recording, I did a lot of episodes for you on systems and team, on all things back end practice administration. But I always invariably end up talking about brand, okay, something I'm really passionate about, but something that most bookkeepers, and myself included very early on for a very long time, don't have a clue about. And yet it is so transformational. So I wanted to do an episode, the last one I batch record before I take a bit of a break from podcast recording and before I host this summit that's on next week now, as I'm 11 February. Before I do all that, I thought I'm going to do another episode on brand where I just share from my heart to try and give you information beyond the pages of my book. You've got my book inside there. There's a workbook, but I want to give you new stuff. Always want to give you new stuff. So we're going to dive into that today, and I'm really going to help you with, the what, the why, the how of a brand so that you can understand why you need to value it and why you need to build one in your bookkeeping practice and how transformational it will be over time if you are patient and let the magic happen. I'll see you in the episode. I'm Jeannie Savage, the Strategic Bookkeeper. I've been in practice for 14 years, but more importantly, 5 years in, I achieved a lifestyle practice. This means I scaled my business, could take my hands off the wheel, and draw a nice 6-figure income while being time rich. And that's what I call my dream on my terms. I was recently awarded Women in Finance Innovator of the Year, recognizing my book, my podcast, my program, and my impact globally. The Strategic Bookkeeper is my life's work, and the opportunity to help bookkeepers globally achieve the income and lifestyle that sets them free absolutely fills my cup. Please do connect with me on socials at the Strategic Bookkeepers Way private Facebook group or shoot me an email, hello@thestrategicbookkeeper.global. So let's dive into brand, and I'd love to really share from what I'd call a place of now. And what I mean by that is I'm always learning around brand. I might be a little bit brand obsessed. And sometimes when I teach others about brand, they get brand obsessed as well because it's a beautiful thing. Our brand is very much our North Star, which is our purpose. So it's really, why are we doing this? So I'm going to start by letting you know that inside my starter membership, and I was just actually thinking about my starter membership. There's lots of great stuff in there, but one of the things that I put in there from our academy, so the academy's attached to the transformation program. So I took the business naming stuff. So I've got this amazing little, let's call it like a little course, and it's just audio friendly. So you can listen to it while you're driving. But what it does, I'm not looking at it now, but just by memory, what I do in there is I guide you through either branding or rebranding and the process of naming a business, because pretty much almost 100% of the bookkeepers that come through to the transformation program, or even bookkeepers that reach out to me about business naming, they're going to make a decision that's not going to be amazing. Okay. And then I redirect them. So what I did is I created some really amazing intellectual property, like coursework around how you really name a business properly. And all the bookkeepers, when they get it, they listen to it and then they use it. Oh my goodness. Like what I hear from them. One bookkeeper said it was like I spoke to her soul. Because like I said, your brand comes from your heart. It's your North Star. It's linked to your purpose. This is really, really beautiful stuff. And your business name, one of the central parts of your brand. So whether you're looking to rebrand, just to understand brand, thinking about naming your business, renaming your business, and so on, this intellectual property is amazing. Now, the starter membership is $59 US for 12 months access. So you heard that right. I know it's kind of ridiculously low fee, but it's just my gift to the community as a place to start. So if you feel like I need access to all of that, it's in there. The other thing I go into in there is how to write your brand story and something called Start With You. So Start With You is my concept. I'll be running in-person retreats where we focus on this as well, because it's so important and impactful. And with Start With You, it's where I teach you what it looks like to do some human design tests for yourself, to get to know yourself and to write your brand story to connect to your North Star, why you're doing what you're doing, and so on. And it's also a part of business naming. So all this brand stuff is like a ecosystem matrix. So it's a little bit linear, like you always want to start with your brand story, 100%. But it's a matrix as well, where combining all the ingredients together is going to give you the results. So all of that is inside the starter membership. And when I ran in January, I ran an aligned life reset for the community. And in there, I provided some links to that as well, because in terms of doing aligned life reset, you want to get across your own human design and really get to know yourself through writing your brand story. So beyond this episode, that's how I can help you. So what is a brand and what is a brand not? Well, a brand is not your logo, your website, your brochure, your socials, etc. They are brand assets. And the way I like to think of it the best is they're like clothes you wear. So your brand is more like your organization's personality. So it's quite multifaceted, and it's all about you and who you serve. A lot like you as a human. So you are a unique human. There's no one else on the planet the same as you, and you attract your unique tribe who vibe with you totally, right? So a brand is a lot like that. And then just like a brand has its own unique brand assets, you often have your own kind of unique style. And inside our transformation program, for example, we've got bookkeepers with amazing brands, and they adopt the fundamentals of our brand, but they put their flavor on it. So the way I would think of that is, so let's say in terms of like a sporting team, if you're a soccer player, one of my girlfriends is a great soccer player. If you're a soccer player and you are just obsessed with soccer and you're always at soccer field and you really vibe with all your soccer friends and you all wear the same uniform, etc., but you're also unique individuals. When you come into the transformation program, the way that you adopt the collateral we give you is a lot like that. So you're using the basis of it like your soccer uniform, right? And yet it doesn't stop you from having your individual stamp. And as I talk to you about this, I'm thinking of some key tribe members inside our program that really don't mess with my brand collateral. And yet, through their own colors and their own expression and being really smart, it has their own beautiful, unique brand flavor. If your brand is not your brand assets, and we've just talked about what it is, let's dive a little deeper into what it is and how you're going to develop it and why. If you come into the program, as I said, you grab our brand and you hit the ground running. You can either use it exactly as it is, or you can get some support to change up some colors and things, just depending where you're at. If you come into the program, everything I'm about to tell you is kind of done for you. The programs are very much a done for you and done with you program, because I knew, I thought for a long time before launching my program, and what I realized is to get the fastest and biggest results was to serve up done for you in the zone of genius that bookkeepers don't have. That's what I thought, rather than spend all the time teaching them to do this stuff and then test it, and that's not quite right, and you need to change it, you need to learn again, okay? So that's why everything I'm about to tell you is done for you. And the way that we work is kind of hard to explain, but basically you come in, you get everything, you apply it in your practice, you start getting results, and it's actually after you get results that you gain more understanding, okay? So we just want you to get big results as quick as you can, and then you learn by doing. So someone was saying the other day that someone they know had double degree in business and all this stuff and still failed in a business. And he said, what's the lesson in that? And I said, the lesson is you learn by doing. It's so important. A uni degree is so valuable, right? It's so important to do these things. But the truth is, the real application is where you learn. You learn by doing. And so I think my methodology of giving you everything, getting you to apply it, and then learn as you watch it all happen is actually, it makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that. So if you're not coming into the program, then here's exactly what you need to do to spend the time to learn about brand and build out your own brand, because this is the foundation of how you'll build a pipeline, how you'll find, onboard, and retain clients without price as a priority. So to build a brand, as I said, you'll find all of that stuff inside the starter membership, but you need to start with your brand story. So in a nutshell, beyond what I shared in there, and I think I did share it in the Aligned Life Reset, and we've published that as a podcast as well. And I think we shared a link to the workbook. So there's some stuff in there too, if you want to check that out. That one's free of charge to access that. You want to write your brand story. I'm not going to go into it in too much depth because you can access it in either of those resources. But in a nutshell, your brand story is a little bit like a life story, but it's not linear and it's through a specific lens. So the lens is, why am I sitting in this chair doing what I'm doing today? Why am I serving the people I serve in the way I serve them, doing what I'm doing? So if that's the lens as a bookkeeper, then go back in time and throw paint at the canvas as you write your brand story, write your life story, always looking through the lens of finding the things that led you to where you are today. So your brand story never ends. It goes on forever, and you will never share its entirety with any other soul on the planet because it's so deeply personal. However, once you write it, you're going to naturally be able to share the things that are relevant. For example, my mother was a management accountant. My father was a world-renowned sales specialist, and I've ended up like a management accountant who specializes in sales. Now, I didn't even see that in my brand story until after I launched the Strategic Bookkeeper, because we're always writing our brand story. There are a lot of other things I saw, okay? Now, if I was going to go and start a business selling kites, right, I would write a new brand story through the lens of how I ended up sitting in that chair, building the kites and selling them. The brand story is different to a life story in that you're using it for a specific purpose and looking through a specific lens. And I elaborate on that in the intellectual property I've directed you to. Once you've written your brand story, it's good to just kind of frame that up into a bit of a summary, like a version 1 summary that you can put in a brand playbook. And I think I give you access to that in the starter membership as well. So you can put that in there. Okay, here's my brand story in a nutshell. I'm not going to share everything, but there's the brand story. You might have a private link to the entire story that no one but you can access, or you may not. I've done my version 1 or at this point of my brand story. Then there's a couple of places you can go from there, but the one I'm going to recommend is just to ask yourself first round, who, where, why. So who do you serve? Where are they? And why would they use you? In a nutshell, and a lot of this we go into my first book, but who do you serve? So I want you to think of that as a dartboard. So on the dartboard is everyone you could serve. So basically, if they've got a problem that you can solve, you can serve them. For example, in your bookkeeping practice, on the outer edges of the dartboard might be all businesses. If you're a B2B business, so you're a business that serves businesses, do you know what? If you've got a business with a problem and I can solve it, I'm going to serve you. And then as you come in on the dartboard towards the bullseye, you're going to go from kind of like an audience to a market to a target market to a niche and a micro niche. That's the way I'd frame it up. So basically, you might go, okay, well, beyond that, anybody in business, I tend to think I'll be serving businesses that are categorized as small and medium. And then you go in a bit further and you say, and realistically, they're probably service-based businesses, not inventory businesses. And then you go in a bit further and you say, well, they're like tradies, trade businesses, and professional services and hairdressers and health and so on, right? And then you go a little bit further and you say, well, in general, they're probably going to be businesses with less than 10 on the team, right? And actually more like tradies, plumbers and electricians with 5 or less on the team. And so the more you go into the bullseye, the more you're going from your market to audience, market, target market, niche, and micro niche. So an example of a micro niche would be fast fieldwork plumbers. So just plumbers that are doing fast field work, okay, versus a plumber doing project work. So a plumber that targets residential houses to just do those small, fast jobs, therefore they could be doing 5 or more jobs in a day. That would be like a micro niche. And then if you just kind of expanded on that a bit, it might be plumbers and electricians that do that. And then if you went out from there, it'd just be plumbers and electricians, not fast field work, right? As their requirements are different. The more micro niche you get, the more same problem you're solving over and over again, and therefore the more of an expert you get on that problem. Now, the other example I'll give, which I worked with one of my tribe members on, and I love this example, is because of her brand story and her background, she wanted to serve creatives like graphic designers. So let's say we say self-employed graphic designers. So graphic designers that are running their own business. We're pretty much into a micro niche when we go there. So if you were serving them, then she had an understanding of this who, because she had experience in graphic design herself, okay? So now I was talking about who, where, why. So all you have to do is go, do you know what? This is who I'm serving. And it doesn't have to be perfect. One of my tribe members the other day said, oh, Jeannie, she's in startup mode. She said, I think I'm just really bogged down with who I'm going to serve and I'm kind of stuck there. And I said, well, I'm going to answer it for you now. We're not going to stay stuck. We're going to move forward, right? You're going to serve small service-based businesses like trades, professional services, health services, and so on. Okay, done. Easy. I've chosen your market because your market will choose itself anyway. Okay, you will be driven and pulled towards the market that's right for you. I'm going to continue with the graphic designer example right now. So this particular tribe member said graphic designers. So when you look at your who, where, why, again, don't get bogged down with any of these. Just pick it. Progress over perfection, move on. So she said graphic designers. So when we go who, where, why, so where are all the graphic designers? Yeah. And why would they use you? The where is where are they all bunched into? Where are they all herded into? Which is probably one of the reasons I say, who is the shepherd of your sheep, right? So where is and generally this question's easier to answer the more you micro niche, because remember the soccer players analogy. So if I was looking for soccer players, I'd go to a soccer match, right? And they're all in one place. So that happens when you micro niche. Whereas if I'm looking for just entrepreneurs, well, I probably need to go to the supermarket because they're all over the place, right? And that's okay. The supermarket's going to make a great partner. But the story of the graphic designer, where are they all? Pause the podcast and you ask yourself that question. See if you come up with the same answer that I came up with. The first place I thought of was they're all at Canva. They're all using Canva, right? You might say, oh, some use Adobe. I don't care. They're all using Canva. Okay. Or a large majority of them are using Canva. For example, where are all the bookkeepers? Well, they're at Xero and Intuit and MyOb and Recon and Sage. They're at the software houses. When I say at the software houses, they're immersed in that brand. They're using that product. What do these people watch, read, listen, do? So watch, read, listen, do, software is often a really easy one. Where are all the plumbers? They're at Reese Plumbing in Australia. What are the major plumbing suppliers in your country? That's where they all are. So when I say where, what do they watch, read, listen, do? Where are they? And the more micro niche you go, the easier it is to answer that question. Progress over perfection. Okay, just answer that question in any way you want, but you want to answer that question. And why would they use you? I think developing your why is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And it's one of the reasons that in the transformation program, I decided on the done for you option, because my own why in my bookkeeping practice took me 10 years to nail. It is a really, really hard one. There's a whole lot of exercises you can do in order to nail your why, including something called the 100 problems, where you look at the source of a problem, the symptoms, the cost of the problem, the deep pain and the ultimate cost, and you do 100 of those. So as a bookkeeper, for example, if you said, well, a symptom is I'm behind on the books. Well, what's the source of that? Well, I thought I would get it done myself after hours, and I get to the end of the day and I'm tired and it's the last thing I want to do, so I don't do the books. Or what's the cost of that? Well, the books get behind and I don't even know, like I'm in the dark about my numbers. I don't even know if I'm making a profit. And then what's the deep cost? Well, then I'm getting stressed. And what's the ultimate cost? I'm actually losing sleep now. I'm having to take sleeping tablets. I'm stressed out of my head. I feel like completely in the dark and out of control. And in the pit of my stomach, I feel like something bad is coming. So see how one problem expands. And then another reason you could be behind is I've got a bookkeeper, but he or she has let me down. They're never up to date, but it's really inconvenient to move and I don't know what to do. And then what is the cost? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the 100 problems exercise is one of the ways that you can work on developing your why, and developing your why does take a while. And so your why is also your vision. So what do you want for your clients? And that actually requires, if you do have clients, listening to them or even talking to entrepreneurial friends and finding out what they want. So for example, we have got the Better in Business Global podcast and academy, right? Entrepreneurs want to do better in business. So when you listen to your entrepreneurs talk to you about their struggles and their pain and their stresses and everything that they want and need, you're going to start to learn what they want and need. If an entrepreneur says, I'm losing sleep and I'm stressed, well, what's the opposite of that? They want peace of mind. Yeah. If an entrepreneur says, oh my goodness, I feel I've got these debts and they crept up on me and I didn't know I had them and I've got money in the bank, so I thought I was making money. Well, they're in the dark, yeah, and they've got debt. They want to make money. They want more profit, right? So through all of this work, you develop a nice, simple vision, which is what your vision is for your clients. Now, no matter what your vision is, then your mission is how you're going to achieve that. So we've done brand story and we've done who, where, and why, or at least the bones of it, okay? Because this is throwing paint at a canvas, and you're not meant to actually finish one thing before you go on to the next. And this is an example of why the front end brand marketing and selling part of your business is like a Picasso, whereas the back end, business administration, HR, practice admin, general admin, systems and team, is black and white and linear, very process driven, very step by step, A, B, C, D, and it doesn't change a lot. So it's much easier to nail. That's the truth of it. So remembering that we bookkeepers, we love to finish something and move on. That's not how brand works. Okay. You're going to just throw paint at a canvas until eventually you get a picture that you like, because one thing is going to feed into the next. So once you've done brand story and who, where, why, I think the next thing to do is really get more formal around your vision, your mission, and your secret sauce. And all of this I give you in a workbook in my first book. So the Strategic Bookkeeper has a brand building playbook, and I literally show you how to build this stuff out. So I'm going to go into it briefly again, but then direct you to go and get that. Okay. Remembering that, you can join the transformation program and it's served up for you. Voila, done. You get 10 years of stuff done for you. So if I go back to the bookkeeping practice blueprint, what I noticed after I launched the program in August 2023 is within a short time, tribe members were getting results that took me 10 years to get. And that's actually quite simple. It's because when you look at the A4 sheet, the bookkeeping practice blueprint, on the left-hand side, you get that stuff the day you join. And it took me 10 years to learn and nail. So because you get all that and it positions you to move forward in a way that builds that thriving, highly profitable practice with delighted clients and your dream on your terms, that's why you get results so quickly. Okay. So if you want it all done for you, come into the program. Now, you want to basically have a look at that brand building playbook. That's going to walk you through more information on how to develop that vision, which is the why. Why do you exist in the eyes of your clients? Why would anyone use you? Okay. And then your mission, which is how. How would you help them do better in business? Well, pillar one for success of any business is up-to-date, accurate accounting records, aka bookkeeping. So you're going to make sure you give them that. And then you're going to maybe educate them along the way, maybe give them other resources, maybe support them all the time, maybe keep them connected, whatever it is. But how are you going to give them that vision that you want for them? So the how will come much easier than the why, but sometimes the why comes last. In fact, often the why comes last. So throw a bit of paint on the canvas of your why, but know that you might nail it last. So you're going to do your vision and your mission. So that's your why and your how, then your secret sauce methodology. So what is the 3 to 10 steps that you take to take your client from kind of pain to payoff? And you're going to be able to easily think about that now that you've got a vague idea of your brand story, your who, where, why, your vision, and your mission. Okay, even though you haven't completed them all, because you're going to go back and do those brush strokes at the end, you're going to say, oh, okay, well, first I do this, second I do this, third I do this, fourth I do this, five I do this. And maybe you say to yourself, not sure if I do those every time, but I definitely should do those. That's my methodology. That's my secret sauce method. So you want to do that. I do recommend that you also work out like the attributes of your ideal client. For example, do you want them to trust you? Do you want them to celebrate the results with others? What are the attributes you want in your clients? That's what we call the target market, not like we talked about a second ago. It's different. It's more ethereal. And then I recommend that you just think about some values that you feel like you really need. Like, do you need the team to be cohesive? Do they need to be tough? Do they need to trust you and trust the system? Do they need empathy? What are the 3 to 5 core values that you and your team need to have? And also the 3 to 5 attributes that you'd love your ideal clients to have. One of ours is follow the systems we give them. If we find our clients aren't aligned with us and we've onboarded them, we usually let them go within weeks with a full refund. So that's really important to us that our clients are aligned with us. The last thing that you can do as part of your exercise to get going with brand is to work out a big game giving strategy. So for example, at Cloud9 Strategic, we give to free to shine, and you're welcome to do the same. Just mention us when you go through, or mention Jeannie Savage. So every time a client buys from us, primarily that's a new client or a client upgrade, it triggers us giving tangible stuff to Free to Shine to support girls in Cambodia to help prevent them ending up in the human trafficking trade. So that's generally school resources like bikes and backpacks and so on. Plus we give to them on a weekly basis as well. So that's our profit through purpose. So whenever we make profit, there's a purpose attached to it where we give back to the community. And inside my transformation program, my tribe get very creative on the purpose that they love. Some of them give to Free to Shine. My partner in his business just chose, I think it's Destiny Rescue. Oh my goodness, it was like amazing. Have a look at Destiny Rescue, and that's linked to human trafficking as well. But where the one that I give to is about prevention, his is about rescuing people, giving them like new identities, getting them educated, getting them jobs, and actually supporting them out of the sex trafficking trade. It makes me shiver all over. Destiny Rescue. Now, he took a while to choose that because he was really passionate about, his heart was pulling him to a particular cause, and your big game is a beautiful thing to include. And if you work with the organization that you want to work with, they should be able to give you collateral to put in your brochure and your website and so on. And we have onboarding comms that thanks our clients for coming on board or upgrading and letting them know that we have made this donation because of that. So it's like a giving together, which is really beautiful. So they're the moving parts of how you develop your brand so that you can develop your key brand assets, which is your social media, your signature brochure, critically important, your website, and your video sales letter are the main brand assets that you really need to create purposefully off your brand. And the benefit of all of this is to give you a clear value proposition. So if you're a great bookkeeper, then you can actually show that. You can show your unique selling proposition, which is generally linked to your secret sauce methodology. You can showcase your competitive advantage, okay, so that you can go to market, connect with your audience, bring them through by nurturing them into an invisible pipeline that turns out as inquiries, dripping through. And then those people, because they've been immersed in this really strong brand that makes sense, they will go through your conversion process with your brand assets, and they will be much more likely. So my tribe tells me like 80% conversion into high value clients. So you can charge twice as much because of your brand, because you're clear on your value proposition, and your market will just be foaming to work with you. Okay. So that is the benefit of brand. Without a brand, without a clear brand, you do not have that value proposition, and so on and so on. So it's the opposite things happen. So please go and use my first book in order to learn more about brand and everything you learned here. And if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, I'd love for you to get in touch either in the private Facebook group or by email. And I will see you in the next episode. Okay, my friend, now it is time to take action. So What are you going to do with what you learned today? The way I see it, you've got two options. You can go it alone to try and save some money, or you can back yourself and go for it and join my tribe. And let me tell you, we are knocking it out of the ballpark. That's not a sales pitch. That is me serving you, dare I say, courageously. To find success, I 100% know you need the mechanics, which is like the keys to the kingdom, but you also need to get your mindset right and be super productive. And these are all things I help you with inside the program. I could go on about this forever because I really want this for you. Have a prosperous week, and I'll see you in the next episode.